What happens when a mother lies to her daughter on national television and Dr. Phil is holding the proof in his hands? Stop the tape. Dr. Phil's voice cut through the studio like a knife. He held up a worn leather diary, its pages yellowed with age. Before we go any further, there's something everyone in this room needs to see. The mother's face went white. The daughter started crying. The audience gasped. Nobody knew that Dr. Phil had been holding the truth the entire time. What happened next would change this family forever and leave millions of viewers absolutely stunned. 48 hours earlier, the Dr. Phil show had received an email that would become one of the most explosive episodes in the show's history. Sarah, a 23-year-old woman from Ohio, had written, "My mother has been lying about what happened the night my father died. For 10 years, she's told everyone he had a heart attack. But I found her old diary. And the truth is so much worse." The production team moved quickly. Within 24 hours, Sarah and her mother Linda were on a plane to Los Angeles. Linda believed she was coming on the show to discuss family healing after loss. She had no idea her daughter had brought evidence. On the morning of the taping, Sarah arrived at the studio 3 hours early. In her backpack was her mother's diary from 2013. She handed it to a producer with trembling hands. "Pages 47 through 52. She whispered. "That's where she wrote everything." The producer read the pages. Her expression changed from curiosity to shock to something close to horror. She immediately took the diary to Dr. Phil's dressing room. Nobody in the audience knew that Dr. Phil had spent the last hour reading words that would destroy a decade of lies. The show began normally. Dr. Phil introduced Linda and Sarah to thunderous applause. They sat in the iconic blue chairs, mother and daughter, separated by 3 feet that felt like miles. "Linda, thank you for being here," Dr. Phil began warmly. "I understand you lost your husband 10 years ago." "Yes," Linda said, her voice steady. "Tom died of a sudden heart attack. It was devastating for our whole family." Sarah's jaw clenched. She gripped the armrest of her chair so hard her knuckles turned white. "Sarah," Dr. Phil turned to the daughter. "You were 13 when your father died. That's a difficult age to lose a parent." "It is," Sarah said quietly. "Especially when you don't know the truth about how it happened." Linda shifted uncomfortably. "Honey, we've been over this. Your father had a heart condition. The doctors explained everything." "Did they?" Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried through the entire studio. Dr. Phil leaned forward. "Sarah, you contacted us because you said your mother has been lying about your father's death. That's a serious accusation." "I know," Sarah said, tears already forming. "But I have proof." "Proof?" Linda laughed nervously. "Sweetheart, this is grief talking. You're imagining things." Dr. Phil held up one hand. "Let's slow down. Sarah, what kind of proof are you talking about?" Sarah reached into her bag, but Dr. Phil gently stopped her. "Actually, before we go there, I want to ask Linda some questions." The audience was completely silent. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. "Linda, walk me through the night your husband died. What happened?" Linda took a deep breath, launching into a story she'd clearly told many times. "Tom came home from work around 6. He seemed tired, but nothing unusual. We had dinner. Around 9 o'clock, he said he felt chest pains. I called 911 immediately, but by the time the ambulance arrived..." Her voice broke convincingly. "He was already gone." Sarah was shaking her head, tears streaming down her face. "That must have been traumatic," Dr. Phil said to Linda. Then he turned to Sarah. "And you were in the house when this happened?" "No," Sarah said. "That's part of the lie. I was at my friend Emma's house for a sleepover. My mom called me at 11 that night to tell me Dad was dead." "So you didn't witness what happened?" Dr. Phil clarified. "Not that night," Sarah said. "But 3 months ago, I found something that told me exactly what happened." Linda's face had gone from concern to panicked. She knew what was coming. What did you find? Dr. Phil asked gently. My mother's diary, Sarah said. From 2013. The year my dad died. Linda stood up abruptly. This is ridiculous. That diary is private. How dare you go through my things? Sit down, Linda. Dr. Phil's voice was firm but not unkind. Let's hear what Sarah has to say. Linda sat, but her leg was bouncing with nervous energy. Sarah pulled out her phone. I took pictures of the pages. May I read them? Dr. Phil held up his hand. Actually, Sarah, you don't have to. Because I have the original diary right here. The reaction was instantaneous. Linda gasped. Sarah's mouth fell open. The audience erupted in shocked murmurs. Dr. Phil pulled the worn leather diary from beside his chair. Your mother gave this to one of our producers this morning, isn't that right, Linda? Linda looked confused. What? I never. Actually, a producer stepped forward from off-camera. We retrieved it from your hotel room with the consent form you signed that allowed us to gather evidence. It was a calculated reveal, perfectly executed. Linda had signed standard release forms without reading them carefully. She'd had no idea the production team would actually go to her hotel. Stop the tape, Dr. Phil said firmly. The cameras kept rolling, but the audience knew something major was happening. Dr. Phil stood up and walked to the center of the stage. He opened the diary to pages marked with yellow tabs. Linda, I'm going to read from your diary. Entry dated June 15, 2013. 2 days before your husband died. Linda was shaking her head. Please don't. I can't take it anymore. Dr. Phil read, his voice steady but grave. Tom said he's leaving me. He's been having an affair with his secretary for 6 months. He told me tonight that he's filing for divorce. He's taking half of everything. The house, the savings, even custody of Sarah. I can't let that happen. I can't lose everything. The studio was dead silent. Sarah was crying openly now, but there was something like relief in her tears. I knew it. She whispered. I knew he didn't just die. Keep reading, Linda said suddenly, her voice hard. If you're going to destroy me, do it completely. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. Dr. Phil's expression was unreadable. He turned the page. June 17, 2013. The day Tom died. He came home from work angry. Said his lawyer told him he'd get full custody because I don't work. Said I was a bad mother. We fought in the kitchen. He was yelling. I was crying. And then... Dr. Phil paused. Linda, do you want to tell them what comes next, or should I? Linda's face was stone. I'll tell them. She stood up and faced the audience directly. We fought. He pushed me. I pushed him back. He slipped on the kitchen floor. Hit his head on the corner of the counter. There was blood everywhere. So much blood. Sarah let out a sob. I panicked. Linda continued, her voice flat. I called 911, but I told them he'd had a heart attack. By the time they arrived, I'd cleaned up the blood. I'd moved his body to the bedroom. I told them I found him collapsed on the bed. Did he die from the fall? Dr. Phil asked. Linda's silence was answer enough. Dr. Phil walked over to Linda's chair. Linda, I need you to be very clear about this. When you called 911, was Tom still alive? Linda closed her eyes. I don't know. He wasn't moving. There was so much blood. I thought he was already gone. But you didn't check, Dr. Phil said quietly. No, Linda whispered. I didn't check. The audience was crying. Sarah was doubled over in her chair, her whole body shaking. Dr. Phil turned to the cameras, speaking directly to the viewers at home. What you're witnessing right now is a family confronting a truth that's been buried for 10 years. This is not easy. This is not comfortable. But this is necessary. He walked back to Sarah and knelt beside her chair. Sarah, look at me. She raised her tear-stained face. You've carried this burden for 3 months since you found that diary. You didn't know what to do with this information. You loved your mother, but you needed the truth about your father. That took tremendous courage. Sarah nodded, unable to speak. Dr. Phil stood and addressed the entire studio. Hold on. We need to pause here. He turned to the production booth. Get Dr. Lawless in here. And have security on standby. Dr. Frank Lawless, the show's psychologist, appeared from the wings within seconds. Dr. Phil looked at Linda. Linda, you understand that what you've just described could be considered criminally negligent, possibly even manslaughter. Do you want to speak with an attorney before we continue? Linda laughed bitterly. What's the point? It's been 10 years. The statute of limitations has probably passed. That's not for me to determine, Dr. Phil said. But what I can tell you is that you've been carrying this guilt for a decade, and it's been destroying you and your daughter. He held up the diary again. There are 50 more pages after that night. 50 pages of guilt, shame, and self-hatred. You wrote about nightmares, about seeing Tom's face, about wanting to tell Sarah the truth but being too afraid. Linda was crying now, the hard facade finally cracking. I never wanted to hurt him. It was an accident. But I was so scared. I thought if anyone knew the truth, they'd take Sarah away from me. She was all I had left. Sarah stood up. But you didn't have me, Mom. You had a daughter you were lying to every single day. Do you know what that's like? Growing up thinking your dad died of a heart attack when really he died because you two were fighting and you were too scared to tell the truth? I'm sorry. Linda sobbed. I'm so sorry. But Dr. Phil wasn't done. He pulled out a small evidence bag from behind his chair. There's one more thing we need to address, he said. Sarah, you told our producers that you found something else in your mother's belongings. Something from that night. Sarah nodded. His wedding ring. She told me the hospital lost it. But I found it in a box in her closet. There's blood on it. The audience gasped. Dr. Phil held up the evidence bag containing a gold wedding band, dark stains clearly visible. Linda. Dr. Phil's voice was stern now. Did you remove your husband's wedding ring before the paramedics arrived? Linda nodded slowly. I pulled it off his finger. I don't know why. I wanted to keep something of him that wasn't touched by the lie. This changes everything, Dr. Phil said. This is evidence tampering. This is obstruction. He turned to the camera. We've contacted the Los Angeles Police Department. Detectives are standing by offstage. Linda, you have a choice right now. You can walk off this stage and refuse to cooperate. Or you can finally, after 10 years, do the right thing. The studio was so quiet you could hear the air conditioning. Linda looked at Sarah. Baby, I am so sorry. For all of it. For the lying, for the pain, for stealing 10 years of truth from you. Mom. Sarah's voice broke. Did you love him? More than anything. Linda said. That's why I couldn't face what I'd done. Every day for 10 years, I've wished I could go back to that night and just check if he was still breathing. Call 911 and tell the truth. Get him help. Dr. Phil sat down between them. Linda, grief and fear made you make terrible choices. But Sarah gave you a gift by bringing you here. She gave you a chance to finally tell the truth. He held up the diary one more time. You wrote in here, on the last page, that you wish someone would find this diary and force you to confess. Well, your daughter found it. And now you have that chance. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. Linda nodded. I'll talk to the police. I'll tell them everything. Dr. Phil motioned off stage. 2 detectives in plain clothes appeared. The audience watched in stunned silence as they approached Linda. Mrs. Patterson, we need you to come with us. One detective said gently. We have some questions about the night of June 17th, 2013. Linda stood. Before she left, she turned to Sarah. I know you probably can't forgive me. But I hope someday you'll understand that I was just a scared, broken woman who made the worst decision of her life. Sarah stood and, in a moment that stunned everyone, hugged her mother. I forgive you, Mom. I don't understand it. But I forgive you. The audience erupted in tears and applause. As Linda left with the detectives, Dr. Phil put his arm around Sarah. Come with me. He led her off stage, the cameras following. In a back room, Dr. Frank Lawless was waiting with a team of therapists. Sarah, you're going to need support through what comes next, Dr. Phil said. Legal proceedings, media attention, processing your father's death all over again. We've arranged for you to receive counseling, free of charge, for as long as you need it. Sarah hugged him. Thank you for letting me tell the truth. 3 months later, Dr. Phil received a letter from Sarah. It arrived at the studio in a simple white envelope. Inside was a single page and a photograph. Dear Dr. Phil, the letter read. My mother pleaded guilty to criminally negligent homicide and evidence tampering. She received 5 years, with eligibility for parole after 3. I visit her every week. We're in family therapy together. For the first time in 10 years, we're both living in truth. The diary is now part of the court records. My father's case has been officially reopened and resolved. His death certificate has been amended to reflect the real cause of death. It sounds strange, but I feel like I finally got to say goodbye to him properly. Thank you for giving us a place to heal. Love, Sarah. The photograph showed Sarah and her mother in the prison visiting room, holding hands across the table, both of them smiling through tears. Dr. Phil kept that letter in his desk drawer. It reminded him why he did this work. The episode became one of the most watched in the show's history. Legal experts debated it. Ethics professors assigned it. Therapists used it to discuss family secrets and the cost of lies. But for Dr. Phil, it was simple. A daughter needed the truth. A mother needed to confess. And sometimes, the most healing thing you can do is hold up a diary and refuse to let the lies continue. The diary itself was eventually returned to Sarah after the trial. She told reporters she kept it not as a reminder of the lies, but as proof that truth, no matter how painful, always finds its way to light.